Okay. All right. So when we are recording, and hi everyone. Welcome again to my audiovisual channel. My name is Gabriela Handal. I'm a draftsman and your host for this podcast, a conversation about art. With this show, I am doing long-term research on the meaning of art and beauty. And today we have episode 122 with returning guest Robert Florczak. Please like, share, comment, subscribe on all the videos as this is greatly helpful to the channel. So, Robert, welcome back to a conversation about art for episode 122. Please tell whoever's going to listen, our future listeners and viewers, who you are and what you do.
Oh, thanks for having me back. It was great fun the first time around, and there's never a lack of things to talk about in this subject.
That's right.
I'm pretty much a lifelong artist illustrator. Spent most of my career doing illustration in a classical mode, actually. Many books, book covers, album covers, movie posters, picture books, and nowadays I do art almost exclusively for myself. Although I balance, or I should say, I juggle three careers because I'm also a musician and an author. And we mentioned it the last time on the last program that I have a book on art that was just being finished at the time. It is finished now, and we're sort of like fixing loose ends with the publisher and hoping for an early 2025 release on the book, called tentatively Good Art, Bad Art, A Guide to Judging Quality. And that's going to do fires.
Okay. That's really exciting. I'm going to be all over that book, just so you know. That's really exciting. All right. So, I mean, is it going to be available on the Amazon?
Oh yeah. Oh sure. It's with it's with a major publisher, so it'll be everywhere. So yeah, no problem with that. You'll be able to find it.
Okay. All right. So all right. So I'm gonna put a link to Robert's first episode that he was kind enough to do with the podcast here, so that everyone can get a really good idea, a much better idea about you and what you do and stuff. But I wanna talk further about things that we've already talked about, like art and beauty and its use. Does it have a use? Subject matter, this type of stuff. I have like I was saying off before we started the recording just now, like I have a rough idea about things that I want to talk about. And we were talking about how art brings enhancement, a type of enhancement into the how would you say that that art is enhancement, or that if you like decorate a place?
we were for the sake of the audience, we had been talking about the idea that often the word communication is thrown around, that art is a way of communicating. And I mentioned that I find that a little wanting of a word, because so much is communication. You get on the phone with someone to have a conversation, and that's communication, but is that art? So it's a little too loose and broad a term. And I always feel that the best of art, and I categorize it that way, the best of, is an enhancement. It enhances our surroundings and even ourselves. And the analogy I gave is, if you were to completely repaint your home, the interior of your home, different colors and whatever, in a beautiful way that you think is beautiful, are you communicating to the guests that come to visit you? Or are you enhancing visually the surroundings that they're in when they come to visit? And I think it's the latter. I mean, obviously, some people would say, well, yes, you're communicating this and that with the choice of colors and all that, but that's not why you're doing that. You're not saying to yourself, I'm going to choose this wine red on this wall because I want the people to know that in my history, going way back in my family generation, no. It's because in your mind, it beautifies the air of that room. And that's as I said, a simplistic kind of way of making an analogy for art. But that's it's in that kernel of thought that I think we have strayed in the art world. That we've gone from enhancing, visually enhancing, always remember that it's visual, to communication in all forms.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. I think it does. So then, you know, if you have like a couple of knobs with which you can increase enhancement versus increase communication with the other one. So then can you elaborate? I mean, I guess I have more than one question. Can you elaborate on how increasing the volume on the communication part has changed art? And also, what about the people who think that having objects of art and works of art in their home it's like what they're communicating, according to their argument, is that they have money, that they have dealers, and they have access to luxury, this type of stuff.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But remember, they're not the artist.
Okay.
They're just putting objects of art into the home. Yes. You'd have to be really accurate. You'd have to be asking what the artist was doing when they were creating the painting or sculpture that this person is putting in their home. Mm-hmm. So that's a different thing. Yes. I don't think it's quite the same.
Okay. So then when you say that art visually enhances our surroundings, like that makes sense. Because I mean, it makes me think of when one decorates the place, like, you know, you have your building that you have moved into, and then after decorating it, you make it feel like a home. And so like that, and that executes some kind of a change in the place that enhances it from just being a box to being your home, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then, and also, so like, how would that apply? When you said enhances ourselves? And does this mean that it enhances the artist who made the work, or that it enhances the person who has the work in their home? Or, I mean, is it both?
I think it's somewhat both, but I don't, even as an artist, I don't think of enhancement when I'm creating work. For the artist, and you're an artist yourself, so you may or may not be able to agree with this. You certainly can relate to it. There's a different motivation in creating works. You certainly want the end product to enhance those who you're creating it for, which is the public. But it's possible that you could surround yourself with your own work on your walls in your home and feel enhanced by the whole thing. But I don't know if an artist really does it for that purpose. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But certainly it's for the enhancement of the environment and for the viewer. Mm-hmm. The viewer, if the art is great, visually great, there is an almost quantifiable experience that the viewer has of fulfillment on so many levels. And if it means anything to you on a spiritual level, even that you don't get from other works that are more dialed, as you made the analogy, in the direction of communication. I mean, that's that. The more it gets into communication, the more it's just about pure information. Also, getting your concept across. And as I point out in my book, like a joke that needs a punchline, once you get it, the experience is over. Somebody explains to you that so often I'll hear publicly from people who say, well, you're just not researching it enough. You don't understand. You need to research and understand and get into what the artist is intending and meaning and all. Well, even if you do that, once you understand what that particular piece means, are you going to keep going back to it? I mean, can you really have a fully joyous experience hearing that same punchline in a joke over and over? I mean, once you know it, it's just not going to be funny anymore.
Right. Yeah. There's that's definitely also a pretty serious flaw in a lot of things that usurp the name of art, because they're more about just being novel and surprising and shocking, And then it's, you know, it's like the really shitty horror movies that they have like all the jump scares instead of an actually scary story.
Exactly.
It's
exactly.
Like, so yeah, so it's like, you know, I don't count jump scares as horror or scary.
No.
It's startling, and then that's it.
Right.
And then you're just like, I mean, I'm kind of annoyed because it's like, all right, how many times are we going to use this tactic? So it's like, so the thing with when that's applied to art, it's like once you're over the shock, it's like, okay, this isn't novel anymore. You're done with it.
That's
it's like
right.
no reason to go back to it, no reason to think about it afterwards, and no reason to tell anyone about it, no reason to think about it anymore.
That's right. Okay. That's right, and because it's the foundation of the work is on the basis of the idea. And sometimes very clever and sometimes very hidden. And if you do your homework and find out what the artist meant and everything, now you understand what they meant, and then it's over.
Congratulations.
You know, I just went to 3 very good museums in France and Germany in the last week, and saw a lot of art. And there were several pieces that I was thinking to myself, here are examples of pieces that I could come back to over and over again, not only over the years, I would go back to them every week and just keep drinking them in and falling deeper into the visual and discovering things that I had never seen before. And that happens to me very often with paintings and sculptures I've known for many, many years. I'll go back and have a new experience with it visually, not conceptual, but the visual.
Yes.
And you don't get that with conceptual pieces because the concept, in quotes, is all there is.
Right.
Once you get that concept, it's over.
Okay. Okay. So I want to talk more about the enhancement that art brings to the viewer, because it makes me think of the ideal and depicting the ideal in the works of art, in the hopes that the viewer will indeed feel enhanced, inspired, and kind of will want to aspire to just something and feel better. And and then that also reminds me of the intention of the salons of the French salon and the École des Beaux-Arts, of them wanting, you know, the reason for which they had like the hierarchy of the painting stuff is because those historical big paintings, multi-figure stuff with the mythology, the point was to depict these scenes to moralize the viewer. Supposedly, that's what I'm reading in that book that I told you, The Judgment of Paris. That was supposedly their intention. And all right, just give me a minute. So how does that work?
Well, I think I would caution you there, because if there are two ideas that I am most trying to sell to the public through the book and the video. 2 very simple ideas. Number 1, it's all about the visual. And in one pithy comment I make sometimes, it's a painting. It's all about the paint.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's always the visual. The second thing that I keep trying to pound into, you know, my book and whoever's listening, is that there's a and I mentioned this in the previous interview with you, that there's a profound difference between quality and taste. So we should never confuse those two. But getting back to the other one, this idea that yes, there was a hierarchy. The judges made the hierarchy, and of course, the judges were the artists at the academy. However, any individual artist during that time did not get up in the morning all excited to get their message across about moralizing to the viewer. Yeah, that when they were putting their concept together of what painting they were going to be doing and all that, that was part of the decision making. They got up that morning, they couldn't wait to mix that day's paints. That is what's lost on the public.
Yes.
And you know this as an artist yourself, right? When you get up in the morning, you've been working on something the day before that you can't wait to get back to. It's not because you have some message to send.
Right.
Even though the piece may have, unless you're doing figure studies and still life and things like that, obviously you have to have some subject matter that you are applying your skills to.
Mm-hmm.
But those artists back in Paris in the 1870s, 1880s, each one of them was absolutely in love with painting.
Mm-hmm.
Painting. Now, let me apply that to something really profound and provocative and all that kind of thing. But even if those ideas were stolen from them, they'd still want to be applying paint to canvas in a way that was aesthetically exciting.
Yes.
And skilled.
Yes.
Am I making any headway here with this?
Sure. Yeah. No. And I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you because I can't say that I'm thinking even about beauty when I'm making a drawing or anything like I can't realistically say or honestly say that I'm thinking about, I want this to be beautiful and I want this to be whatever. It's like, all I want is to like my drawing and I want it to look good. But I want it to look right.
You know what? I think you are. I've seen your work and I think you are. You may not be in the micro moments of activity. You're not thinking in the grand terms of beauty, but each decision you're making in your work is one based on not only an understanding, but an attempt to make sure that next stroke of the pencil or the brush or something is aesthetically sound, therefore beautiful.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, okay.
You know, there's micro beauty in the process, and process is extremely important in the skill aspect of art, but also in the macro. So there's beauty in the macro and beauty in the micro, and it's the micro that I'm talking about here. That those great painters, no matter what the subject matter was and how many figures are in there, they were in love with the micro aspects of the beauty involved in making those paintings or sculptures.
Yes.
And you see it. That's the thing. You see it when you go to the museums and see these pieces. It's so obvious when you're looking at it that this is what the artist was spending their time doing. And trying to get across to the viewer. They wanted to enhance the visual experience of the viewer with this particular color choice and this particular brushstroke choice or refinement on the surface of the marble. And again, as I said earlier, this is what has been lost. Both by artists themselves and unfortunately the public, because they have gone to school for the last 150 years learning about art from the wrong side, as I see it, from the wrong side of the track. It's not about the point of view of the artist, it's the point of view of the art historian who has nothing else to go by but these intellectual concepts.
And how would you say that what you said has been lost on the side of the artist as well?
Well, because the artist it's been a slippery slope since the 1870s, and it got to the point where the visual, and certainly the skilled visual, became totally irrelevant. It became all about the idea, all about the idea.
Okay, so then the skill has been lost, like the skill aspect has been
totally lost. In the fine arts, it has. I mean, you still it'll never go away because there'll always be an inherent desire on the part of the truly artistic to want to be able to do this kind of thing. For many years, it ended up in the area of illustration. I mean, you're probably aware of the golden age, as at the turn of the century, from the 19th, 20th century, as art was really starting to explode in directions it never had before, and leaving the skilled artists behind, they didn't just disappear. They found a new thing, and it was just beautifully coincidental, maybe not coincidental, that right at that same point, high quality reproduction, printing was invented, and now you could have paintings in books.
Yes.
So for the first half of the 20th century, you had a golden, well, it goes earlier than that. It goes from about the 1880s to about the 1950s. You had a golden age of illustration, whereby the artists who were the earliest artists, especially Howard Pyle, Maxfield Parrish, those people, they were studying at academies and learning no differently from what all the great art academies had taught in generations before that. It's just that now, since there was no place to go with it publicly through galleries and whatnot, it was now applied to the world of illustration. So the earliest illustrators in that golden age, their work was just as sound as the greatest painters at the end of the 19th century who were still doing gallery or museum work. I mean, that started to fall apart too after World War II. But you can look at a mid-career Norman Rockwell painting, and if you put aside sometimes the trivia of the subject matter, which is again getting back to what we're talking about here, the difference between the concept and the execution, those paintings are bang up.
Yes.
I mean, this guy really knew what he was doing with a brush and paint. And that lasted. And then a whole other thing started to change, and digital came in, and that's a whole other can of worms.
Okay. Why did so if we're talking about, starting with the salons and everything, when you have Maisonnier and like kind of academic type individuals, because I think you actually mentioned this in your first episode as well. It's like they were just pushed out and made to seem obsolete, and so kind of arguably maybe the real start of the crumbling of the skill that we're talking about. So why do you think arguably the other side, why do you think they felt like they had to just get rid of that?
Well, there are a lot of reasons for that. Several are that it's human nature that we don't lean towards discipline. It's just human nature. It's easier to stay in bed on a Saturday morning lazily rather than getting up and doing what we need to do.
Yeah.
So maintaining work at these high standards that had been developed over centuries, that's a tough thing to do. So if the principal comes into the classroom of the Academy of the Beaux-Arts, right, and says, "Okay, class, from now on, you don't have to study for those tests. Just write whatever you need to write." Everybody's cheering in the classroom. It's human nature. So once that crack happened in the foundation in the 1870s, it was little by little going to open the floodgates of more and more artists saying, "Yeah, I don't need to do that. I can focus much more on style and coming up with something that nobody's ever seen before," and all those things. And it was just a matter of time before it just went farther and farther into craziness. The other thing was there were, especially in Paris and in London, a lot of art dealers. Because, let's say, for instance, the real king in Europe was Bouguereau.
Okay.
He was the most successful, the highest selling painter in the second half of the 19th century. And it worked very well with America because all of those great industrialists who were, the first multimillionaires and everything, they would go to Europe and they'd want to buy the best work and bring it back to America. So he had this fantastic commercial setup to be able to sell his work and whatnot. But his painting, and he would have a dealer. He had a dealer for several decades. He could only produce so many paintings like that in a certain amount of time.
Right.
Now, dealers have to survive.
Sure.
Suddenly one day, these dealers wake up to the fact that, wait a minute, we have these painters now who are able to knock out 4 of them in a month, whereas Bouguereau could only knock out 1. That translates to more sales. And so the dealers themselves, with the help of critics who would be writing, would start to pump up the idea that not only is this new art, it's just as good. In fact, they started disingenuously calling the first wave of Impressionists old masters, right? Now, the public doesn't realize this going on and what was going on. And in the first wave, the public who was the big, they were the ones who were attracted to the shows, and they would go to them the way you would go to movie theaters now and pay money. They hated that stuff because they could see right through it. They could see that it looked unfinished, which was the whole intention of it, that it didn't show the same skills that they were familiar with. And it took them a little longer, and the dealers knew that it was going to take a little time to sort of, get the public aware of this new thing that was going on. Anyway, to make the story shorter, ultimately, there was a commercial aspect there because they knew the faster the work could be done, the faster they could sell the work. Now, that's kind of a cynical way of looking at things, and you will never see that in the history books. It's a fact. I mean, you can look up this stuff and read about it, but it's rarely printed, and you won't see it in the standard art history books or anything because it's not. That perspective is not taught that way. It's taught that these new works were great, and they were on the same level of greatness that everything that came before them, and now it was just a matter of getting on board with with the new track. And if you weren't on board, you were one of the unwashed ignorant. And they almost use that kind of terminology to kind of goad the public. You better get with this new thing, or you're really going to be, passé. It's very true.
Okay.
Does that answer your question about that?
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah, it does.
One last thing.
Yes.
One last thing in all of this. It wasn't enough to try to get these new artists promoted enough to be able to start now selling to wealthy collectors and all that, and to get the public more on board with this new strain. They also needed to bury the classicists in their midst. So you started to see more and more writings about how the works of somebody like Bouguereau were just kind of nostalgia, kitsch, and that kind of thing. They worked very hard at lampooning. They didn't find it. They didn't think it would be fair to have both. Why not? It would have been fair to have both. Some people like a classical approach, and others would like a modern one. No, they had to bury. And they did a real good job of it because those artists, those last artists of the late 19th century who were still utilizing classical concepts going back centuries, were completely forgotten in a very short period of time. Completely forgotten.
Okay. Well, then I guess that's actually the question that I meant. It's like, why did they feel so? I mean, the business part makes a lot of sense to me. That makes perfect sense to me. But then I don't really understand, I guess, what is the reasoning behind having to completely dismiss the classical type people when it's like, it's, if I'm a dealer and I already kind of shit talk to them enough that people don't want to buy their work enough anymore, like, what does it matter to me if they're still there? Well,
because it's competition.
Okay.
You bring your client into the atelier, into the gallery, right? And there's an Alma Tadema up on the wall there, and you're saying, no, don't look over at that thing. I don't want you.
Yeah.
These are the ones I want you to see.
Right.
Look at this great new stuff. Nobody has slapped paint on a canvas like this ever before. I know you keep looking over at that Alma Tadema, and yeah, it's pretty good, but don't look there. Look over here.
Yeah.
So that's what they were doing in a grander sense. They were getting rid of their competition.
Okay. Yes, that's pretty ruthless. Okay. In reading about the book that I'm telling you about, The Judgment of Paris, they also mentioned that it was difficult to, I mean, not necessarily difficult because I don't talk about that specifically, but they definitely talk about the public's initial reaction, at least, to having that work. And I was like, this is crazy to me because it looks like there was a baseline kind of art education, or like what you're saying about I don't know, both quality and taste, like knowledge of knowing what that good stuff is. And that seems crazy to me, to the point, because it's like, all right, so there's supposed to be the people, like a guy named Noya Kirk or something, who was like one of the organizers of the event, that actually looked down on that public, but somehow the public still scorned the Manet, the whatever, like Courbet, this type of stuff.
For decades.
Yeah,
for decades
yeah.
It lasted. It was a long time. See, I have great faith and trust in the public's inherent intuition.
Yeah.
The public eventually knows what is good in front of them. They can tell. They can tell when they hear a great singer's voice, or I should say, a great voice from a singer. Even if it's not their kind of music, they'll be walking down the street and this voice comes out of a speaker that's unquestionably a great voice. They're going to stop for a moment and say, whoa. True skill is understood by the masses. And that's who that audience, the general public was the audience for generations for this kind of work. And when, for the first time, like cold water in the face, they're being presented with something that is questionable in the area of skill. They didn't need to be professionals. They saw it right in front of them. What is this? These pieces are unfinished. They look amateurish. We know human proportion when we see it. We're not doctors, but we can sense it. We're human beings. Something's off with that guy's arm. And of course, later you got onto the interpretation train. Well, that's the interpretation of the artist in looking at an arm. Well, you can get away with a hell of a lot with that explanation.
Right. Okay. So then tell me what you think about this, because I've been, things are happening in the brain, after talking about stuff. So if a person's first, either an artist or a layperson, but I guess I'm going to stick with like the layperson, quote unquote. If the layperson's gut reaction, like first reaction, is like, I can do that, then it's not art. Because it's like the instinct is, the person's instinct, it's like instinctually, and I mean, I agree with you that it's like, you don't even need an art degree, I don't think, to be able to know that something is a work of art, because it's like, that it requires skill, some kind of skill. Like it might still be murky to you, like exactly how it's done, but then that's the point of having a skill, or knowing that something requires a skill, that, when you see the thing, it does not have to tell you that it's art. Nobody has to tell you that it's art, because you know whether it's art or not. Okay.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Tell me if we talked about this the last time. Isn't it interesting that only in art, of all of the creative mediums, have we been indoctrinated to accept less? For instance, and there's a reason, and I'll get to it. Imagine we go to movie theaters, which we do, and you're going to see Lord of the Rings, and you're paying, what does it cost to go to a movie now? I don't even know.
Haven't been in a while.
20? Yeah. You're slapping down $20 to go see this film. You're expecting high quality. Now imagine the film equivalent of some of the inane things that are done in the art world. How many people do you think would slap down money at the box office to see that?
Yeah.
And swallow the filmmakers, you know, concepts of why they're doing that? Well, I know the first 45 minutes is blank white film, and all you hear is a hiss on that. But it's because there's a reason, there's a meaning, a deep meaning behind this. And you must follow me with. Nobody would ever accept that. Nobody would accept it in a book. As I say in my book, imagine a novel written in completely new words that you've never seen before, that are basically phonetic, that you could read them along, and maybe now and then, because of the way the words sound, you might get some emotional. Who would read a book like that? And yet, you know what that is? Abstract art.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that book that I just described has no logical connection to anything in reality. And we need that as the human. We need a connection to reality, the same way as if a horizon is slightly askew, we would feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because it's innate, right? We need to have some connection. So that's why you could have very stylistic work that's very well done. That's not. I get this all the time, that people think I'm talking about realism. It's not about realism. You could have a non-realistic painting that's quite well done, but if there's something identifiable to draw you in, where you recognize that it is a figure, or it is a landscape or whatever. But when you get to pure abstract expressionism, that's that book filled with words. You have no way of knowing where you are. Now, yes, getting into the taste versus standards or a quality thing, you may love it, fine. And I have no problem with that kind of thing. It's when it's expected to be put on the same continuum that goes back to Michelangelo.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It's an intellectual experiment. Mm-hmm. It's a visual experiment. That's all it is. And again, going back to the movie analogy, you wouldn't pay money to go see that. You're expecting quality, skill, and you're expecting skill of a writer when you're reading a book. When you pay the money to buy the book, I said I was going to get back to it. The art world is the only place that you don't pay money. Museums, some museums you have to pay. Most galleries you don't.
Right.
You can walk into a gallery anywhere. So the success or failure of any particular artist in a modern gallery is not dependent on box office. Mm-hmm. If it were, I believe you would see different art.
Yes.
Does that sound logical?
Yeah. And I agree. I definitely agree with you that art, the field of art is, and not just any art, not all of the arts necessarily, like the umbrella term, but visual art specifically.
Visual art, yeah.
Yeah, because I think, Yoko Ono tried to get away with something with the music, but it didn't work.
Thinking of her, I was thinking about the music field. There's a perfect example.
Yeah.
You think they bought as many? The public bought as many of her recordings as they did her husband's?
Yes.
Not quite.
No. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I think So it's it's really a perfect analog for what you're talking about, because not only do you not need to does the listener not need to understand what the lyrics are saying in order to realize that it's music and that he's enjoying it, but there's no dilution or dissolution. I'm talking about like a substance diluted in water, because like for the visual arts, it has become so diluted that it doesn't mean anything. And I don't really understand. Like I agree that that's what has happened, but I don't understand why. And it's frustrating.
You're trying to get at that, and maybe I'm not. Maybe, as I said in our talk before we went on live here, I need to be more concise. And I think to simplify this, it was a symbiotic thing that took several decades between the art dealing world knowing now that they could be successful and even more successful by by promoting and selling work that could be produced faster, and at the same time slowly indoctrinating the public that this is what you need to understand, and this is the train to the future that you need to be on, otherwise you're going to be a rube.
I see.
And those two things together over a period of time took root. Now, most of the public to this day still doesn't buy into it, but they don't have to, because the whole world of art has changed, where the world of art doesn't mean as much to the public as it did in those days. First of all, there's very little competition for your entertainment time. In 1870, when you're going to the August Academy presentation, what other entertainment did you have? You could go to a nightclub and see a singer. That was it. There was no television, no radio, no movies, no records, no record players. So you didn't have that. That was it. I mean, the beer. I may have mentioned this, but the giant Bierstadt landscapes that were based on his travels out to the American West were toured around in the Northeast to the big cities, where lines of people would line up to go in to see these things as if they were going to something at Radio City Music Hall. There was no competition to it. And so art meant something differently then than it does now. And so you can get away with a lot of stuff in the arts that you wouldn't have back then, because the public's got other stuff it wants to see and do anyway. Does that help?
Yeah, it does help. It just yes, it does help, and I think it also makes sense, but it definitely seems like, wow, the dealers really did a lot of work there. It's like,
oh, they did.
It's like borderline conspiracy theory, in the sense that it's like, yeah, we're gonna have to make a club, and it's like the friggin' Illuminati dealers that they're like, yeah, somehow continuing generations later they keep doing it or something, and it's like
well, it is now. It's not even a conspiracy. It has become a cabal.
Okay.
There's a three-way cabal between galleries, museums, and auction houses.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
Art. What's that?
Yeah, I've heard of something like that.
Yeah. The art now has become, sadly, really about auction sales for investment. It's all about investment. And the game is to rev up interest in some new artist so that they sell well at auction for investment purposes. And one of the ways to rev it up is to promote the artist, talk that artist up, get them a gallery show, and then get them into a museum. And a museum is big status. And now once an artist is in a museum, especially name museums, that adds to their importance at the auction house. Yes. And you'll find collectors, big time, big money collectors, who collect certain artists and never show the work. They buy them and they warehouse them, because down the line they'll be able to put them up for auction again, and the work will have improved, increased in price, and it's all an investment situation. It's nothing to do with the quality of the work. And there's that three-way cabal.
Okay. Well, that's nice, depressive as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The gallery says to the manager, the artist managers, find me a new artist. I think something of this or that sort would be in this season. Find me somebody who's like that. The manager finds somebody, brings them to the gallery. Yeah, this is good. We can do a big show on this one, and it starts the ball rolling towards ultimately investment.
I hate it. Okay. All right. So, let's talk about about enhancement again, if you don't mind. Because I hate what we were talking about just now. And the ideal.
I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's like, I kind of know. I kind of know. I remember when I saw a short clip of some Bansky image that Bansky supposedly on purpose made it so that it would be shredded, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? It's like, who believes that's like an actual thing? It's like, so he's supposed to be like flipping the auction houses, and it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, no, you're not.
Of course.
Anyway, yeah, it's like, I mean, I know that's there, and I fucking hate it. It's stupid. It's so irritating. But I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna try to go back to ignoring it, because I don't want to feel this way when I'm trying to find the value in art and beauty again.
Yeah. Well, look, ironically, I'm your guy, because that's my domain, all the great enhancing art. And we got off into we went down into the dregs for a while there.
Yes. That's okay. It's fine. And we should try to bring balance to all the trash with nicer things.
Right.
At least.
Take a deep breath, Gabriela.
Yes. Breath. Let me have some bone broth. Okay. Yes. Enhancement and the ideal, which is what, when you said enhancement, it reminded me of that, because, you know, if you're talking about decorating your home, your house, your newly obtained house, you decorate it and you enhance it to then make it into a home, which is superior. It's superior to just a house, a brick building.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So then that, of course, reminds me of the ideal, which also makes me think of something that I think you alluded to it earlier, which is the realistic art, and it's not just realistic art. I mean, it's representational because there's figures and there's plants, but it's not just a woman that is depicted in the Venus. It's like an idealized woman or idealized man. The man is very heroic, he's strong or whatever, and the woman is very beautiful and feminine and stuff. So
and remember, it's all in the paint. All in the paint.
Yes. Okay. So yes, all in the paint. And there's also something that is mentioned in the book, The Judgment of Paris, about how these classicist type artists wanted to completely remove their hand, in a way, from the work, like not having the brushstrokes be visible, meaning to obscure the brushstrokes and stuff. And I heard a quote recently, and I'm gonna say it in Latin to show off. It's art est celare artem, which is like, so it is art to obscure the art, or to like, it is art to disguise the work that you put into it. So
right.
I think there's something there, and maybe you can like.
Oh, there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
Yes.
And that, in spite of, I haven't read that book, and I should, because I'm not sure what the thrust of that author would be with all of this. But the idea of obscuring is actually a huge no-no.
Interesting.
Yes. And it goes back, you'll find this in any of the academies that we're teaching all the way back. Never fool the eye. You must always, no matter how refined your skill is, the viewer should always still be able to see what it is that you've been working with.
Yes, okay.
Fooling the eye is a gimmick. And now the thing is, there were some artists who would do that. And today, of course, in digital art, there's no surface anyway. I mean, it doesn't exist except in the ether. So there's nothing of that sort. So that's like it's come to its full manifestation of that premise that you should never obscure the medium. And now getting back to somebody like Bouguereau again, who was the kingpin of then, his technique was extremely smoothed out. But again, when you're standing in front of that original, and I stood in front of one last week that I'd never seen before, monumental. you get up close to that and you see the handiwork of a master with oil paint. You see it. It's not obscured.
Okay.
And it should never be, because that's fooling the eye, and it's fakery. And a lot of people think that's what the great artists are trying to do. Smooth out so much that it looks so perfect, and that's not what it's all about. Also, as I had mentioned earlier, to be careful not to confuse, say, figurative with realism. Realism is simply a stylistic choice. Realism does not in itself mean the highest standard. It's only a stylistic thing. There are figurative painters who aren't anywhere near being realistic, whose work is much better than painters who are extremely realistic but fall apart in all other areas of the aesthetics of painting and composition or whatever. So that's something I really point out in my book, and I point out to people who contact me, not to confuse that. I'm never talking about realism as being an ideal. It's simply a stylistic choice. The ideal is in all the other areas of aesthetics, not that. Is that?
Okay. Yes. It is, but I want you to tell me more about it. Because I was listening to a podcast on Sorolla, and he submitted some work to something where he painted a nude, and the woman's breasts were natural, like they weren't hurt. And this was very offensive, that she was a normal woman. A normal real life woman. So then that would, is that arguably the realism that you're talking about? That's a kind of like a stylistic choice?
No. That's a whole other. That's an argument about the subject matter.
Okay.
Should the nude be shown in the most perfect way that a nude should ever look? Should you not show the ravages of age? That's a different argument altogether. No, I'm only talking about the application of the medium to look as close to real as possible. That's simply a matter of a stylistic choice. I mean, there are fast pencil drawings by Da Vinci that are much greater than the most realistic painting that somebody could do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because those check the boxes of the aesthetics of the medium. Pressure points. You do a lot of drawing. The movement of line and the different pressures along a line, and all that kind of thing. That's what goes into what makes for great skill and aesthetics in any of the mediums. So to get something to look as close to real as possible is only stylistic. And that came in and out of fashion over the centuries too. In the mid to late 19th century, it was highly fashionable. But then again, it was earlier on too. I mean, you have people like Ingres. Holbein in the 16th century is about as realistic as you can get. Really realistic. But if you look at a Holbein up close, there's no question that what you're looking at is paint applied to, in his case, wood. There's no foolery there.
Yes.
I hope this is getting across, because it's a very, very important thing.
Yes. Clearly, I have a lot to learn on the subject still. And I might, I might ask you about something related over email again at some point.
Sure.
And yeah, and of course, for sure, get your book and everything, because I'm pretty excited about that. Because so what you're talking to me about makes me think of hyperrealism, which is, it's not. I don't remember what you were calling it just now. It's not a style, right?
Yeah, it's a stylistic choice. It goes beyond, in some ways, actually, and I talk about that area of art in my book. It goes a little bit beyond the fashion and style. Mm. It's a conceit, especially photorealism, which is kind of the same thing, really.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a pointless activity.
Yeah.
The idea of absolutely and accurately aping what's in the photograph. What is the point of that? And it also shows that the artist is not understanding where true aesthetics lie. Mm. What that's all about is a gimmick. Ooh, look at that. He was able to get the thing to look exactly like the photo. One of the problems with a lot of that work is that they work from basically what are snapshots. And so you end up getting all of the artifacts and the problems from the snapshot and redoing them as paint on canvas or whatever it is. I mean, if you were, as an illustrator, often what I would be doing was working from photos, but everything was staged as if the model is in front of me. That model would have to be in costume with whatever props they're holding or whatever, lit in exactly the same way that the painting is going to be showing, lit so that basically what I'm doing is painting from what anybody would have done for hundreds of years in front of a model that they set up in their studio. It's just that we have the ability now not to, have somebody sit there for 4 hours in front of you doing that. But that's different than painting from snapshots with all the artifacts that come along with a snapshot. I can always tell when I see painters work, artists work today, when they've worked from photos, because I can tell that the poses they weren't posed. They found the photo that they like, that where they like the lighting or the way the woman is sitting under the tree or something like that. But I can tell that it was not totally controlled by the artist. There are little giveaways in gestures that people make when they're not posed, where there's little awkward things. There are branches on the tree that are in an awkward position and shouldn't be there because a photograph is non-discriminating. An artist is. An artist takes this out, puts this in, and all that type of thing. So hyperrealism and photorealism is kind of a pointless exercise. It's just copying exactly what's in a photo, and that's simply a matter of practice.
Right.
It's just there's nothing special about that.
Yes.
To the unsuspecting and the unschooled and what to look for visually in things, it's got a certain ooh-ah factor.
Right,
to it.
Right. Another novelty thing.
Exactly. It's a novelty. It's a gimmick. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer the question about realism and all that?
Yes. I think I have to let it stew for a bit, and I think I'll understand better.
And by the way, while you're stewing, be mindful not to confuse it with realism, capital R, which was a period of time in the mid-19th century, a period of art rather, that meant something slightly different.
You mean like the Courbet stuff?
Yes. Okay. And I know that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about realism as a style.
Okay. Yes. I'm just taking notes.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So it has been a whole hour, Mr. Florczak.
Wow.
And
we have another one to go.
Yeah. I mean, no, I would like that. Yes, because I have other questions, but there's physical impediments in the edifice upon which I dwell, that do not allow me to go for longer than certain periods of time.
Spoken so eloquently.
Yes, I'm reading a lot of Dickens.
Are you?
Yes.
Oh, there's another podcast. He's my idol.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've been reading a lot of him and Jane Austen, and I mean, there's a lot to choose from there.
Just quickly for my own interest, what was the latest Dickens you've been into?
Right now, I'm reading David Copperfield.
His favorite.
Yes, I hear that it's popular, but I'm like in the first quarter of it, I think. Yes.
Yeah, it's his own favorite, the book of his own writing.
Yeah. Supposedly, it's roughly autobiographical,
including the initials.
Yeah, he was so clever with that stuff. What a nice detail! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's he has authors or whomever, movie people, whatever it is, they have a way of writing their characters that it's just like, I fucking hate Mr. Murdstone. Hate his guts. And I hate his sister so much. Like, a lot.
Donkeys? Hey, speaking of which, oh, geez, I could go another hour just on Dickens with you. Before you go, though, have you seen the classic from 1935?
I don't know what that is.
And films all time. David Copperfield.
Okay.
George Cukor directed it. W.C. Fields is even in it. But it is, if you were a big Dickens fan and you know your movies, that film captures Dickens better than any. And there are tons and tons of Dickens. I collect them. I collect as many Dickens movies as I can get. And for some reason, there's a lot of David Copperfield. You must see that film. What you reminded me of is the great Mr. Murdstone. And do you know who Basil Rathbone is, who played Sherlock Holmes?
No, I don't.
No, he plays Mr. Murdstone in that.
I see. Okay.
So there's my film recommendation for you. David Copperfield from 1935. It's brilliant.
1935. Okay. Yeah, I took note of it, and I'll look it up because when I reading Emma and certain like the way that they describe their features, for example, they say that it's elegant or that it's open or I don't know, something like this. Like they have these commonalities, and it's like I am so curious to see what these people look like. So like I do want to watch the movies, but then if I there's a movie on a rendition of Emma where Kate Beckinsale is Emma, and I'm like, no, it doesn't look right. She doesn't look right.
Yeah, you know what happens? You got it. As in more modern times, they go so much more for the box office bankable names.
Yeah.
Which often do not comport with what the novel described as and I've had that experience so many times.
Yeah. So if you remember other movies of these peoples that in particular you think are superior to the others, just feel free to let me know because I'm interested.
Oh, you'll get a list, all right. You'll get a list because that's my other great past classic film. Okay. And it's identical. It's an identical thing.
Oh, really?
In the art. Oh, it's the same. You could do them back to back, although the film history is much shorter. But the same thing. There's a classical period, and there's a modern period, and it roughly changes over in the late 40s.
Yes.
And everything. There's a different way of making movies. It's palpable that they made them differently, and once it clicks with you, you never want to see anything else but those films. Because those films were made the same way that paintings were made for the Academy in the 1870s. It's the same mindset.
Yes.
So there you go.
So then that's another episode. One on Dickens, one about movies. All right. All right. Let me.
I'll send you lists. Yeah,
do it. Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, so that I can have we can have a list of with which we can illustrate ourselves over here because I certainly need that. So let me close it out real quick. So, thank you, Robert, for talking with me today again. And I don't know. I mean, I would like it if we did it again. And well, that would be cool. So, is there anything you want to add? I think you should talk a little bit about just reiterate about your book if that's okay with you. To remind the listener.
I'd like to do that more, but it's just too soon to do it. And as a matter of fact, we're sort of hung up at the moment, business wise, with permissions for imagery and things like that. So if I knew actually, for instance, if I knew an actual pub date, I'd be all over it to tell you all about that kind of thing.
Of course.
So I can only just be generalized right now. It's Skyhorse Publishing and targeted for the beginning of 2025, but I just don't know yet. The book's done. I mean, it's complete and ready to go. They're just hammering out little issues here and there.
Okay, that's fair.
Good art, bad art, a guide to judging quality.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. Thank you very much again. Thank you, Robert, and thank you everyone for listening, and see you next time. Bye.